Talking with Nomo. Talking with Nomo. Step in the room, let's go. Got that spark, got that flow. Quick hit talk, real talk. Every word on the mark. Lean close, hear that name every time. Bring the flame, one more round, let it show. Talking with Nomo.
All right, we got the connection. Better living through modern technology, I like to say. Okay, here we are. Melissa, welcome. This is like becoming a regular kind of thing with me. This is episode 4 now that we're on. I mean, hey, get out of the way, people. Anyway, Miss Melissa and I, welcome, by the way. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Miss Melissa and I have met at several of the council meetings and workshops, and I've listened to a lot of her dialogue that she's had. She's much nicer than I am when I talk to them. I don't have that in my flavor anymore. I've been putting up with it for a long time, and that's where I get the name Nomo, Mr. Nice Guy. But anyway, Melissa has some ideas that are in sync with mine. And I thought that since a lot of people have Eric derangement syndrome or EDS out there in the decision-making world, that since Melissa's able to put some of the same things on the table that we've been putting on the table, tell me about your synergy with the village and what kind of progress you're making on moratoriums or stalls or pauses or ways that we can just get this whole data center thing compartmentalized before we move forward with it. Because I know there's some stuff you've been working on. So let's tell people about it.
Okay, so back on the 22nd of last month, I delivered in person and via email a couple of documents that I asked to be distributed to all the council members, all the village staff, and to get a response from the following Thursday, to which I've had no response from since then. So we're a ways out now, which is a bit disappointing considering I've had actually really good feedback and, relationships with them on a respectful level.
A quick suggestion, and this goes for anybody that's listening too. I had sent in a list of 8 different, some proposals, some were FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests. And I asked LaRonda at the meeting, I said, am I just getting ignored now? She says, what do you mean? She ran in and she grabbed the Barracuda log and printed the Barracuda firewall log out. I had been taken by the technology and put into a holding bin automatically. So you may be being dumped through their gateway or their firewall someplace based upon words or whatever, just as a heads up.
Yeah,
I'll
look in.
Yeah,
I'll
check
look
into it.
that.
I like to give LaRonda the benefit of the doubt because I know in the past that LaRonda has always been able to come through with what we've requested, even if it's an answer that she says, I don't have an answer, but I'm working on it. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to throw that in.
No, you're good.
I've had trouble with that too.
Well, LaRonda's been exceptional. She's always delivered to me any information that I've asked for or said, hey, this is the way this should go. This is, the pathway for what you're asking for, but I'll assist you on this time, but in future, go this way. So she's never, given me any difficulty. She's been so helpful.
Yeah, she's good at her job.
I will say that the 2 documents that I submitted in person, I also sent via email to each individual person from the village staff and village council. To her credit, Taryn did respond via email saying that she had received it. So I thank her for that. However, I still don't have a response, whether that's say great or say go away. Either way, it would be great to have that response given that, residents are asking questions and we're entitled to have some form of disclosure. So one of the documents I put forward was a proposed interim moratorium / administrative pause. And it's more administrative pause. And it can be edited by legal, it can be edited by whatever, but administrative pause is the key word there. and land development review for hyperscale data centers. Now, in that proposal, it talks about those restrictions that we were all told at council meetings under SB 180. But it also goes into how Citrus County and other areas, which are currently under the same restrictions under SB 180, have managed to do that administrative pause. And the purpose of that is to look at infrastructure impacts, environmental impacts, public safety concerns, water and energy demand, compatibility, and the, current land development regulations as a whole. And it helps to assist with communication between departments and other groups. And I put it all the way through. I put the legal basis for it and where it's been allowed, where other um, cities and counties
Let's
have
pick
done
up right
so.
there. Let's branch off, if you don't mind, right there, and talk a little bit about that, because that's some of the parallels that you and I have had, and I've been following this 180 and the hurricanes and all of the you can't. But have you shown any statutory authority from SB 484 in your proposal here? Is that part of your
I figured the village attorney would be well aware since he stated it in plenty of council meetings that the public have attended about its restrictions and why, you know, nothing could be done to put a pause. That's his domain. I don't pretend to know his profession entirely, although I do have a legal background, and I leave that to him. I also attached a letter that said if this was not legally feasible or it was actionable, I would like to be explained why. So I'm waiting to see what that argument is to say, yeah, elements can, or all of it can, or why it cannot. And again, if they say it cannot and they give that legal footing as to why, cool, no harm, no foul. But to know that would be a great thing, given that citrus and other areas have done so, even though they're under those same restrictions.
Okay, that's great. So I guess my question would be this: if we are going to have to do what needs to be done to get a zoning category put together within the local land development regulations at some point forward, because it hasn't happened yet, um, shouldn't there be consideration for the ability to properly do that? And if so, it seems that it should be enough in and of itself that if you have to do this type of regulatory work of changing your land development regulations to fit a development standard, say a large load customer that is over 500,000 square feet, well, that doesn't fit into any of the current LDRs. I don't care what zoning pattern you put them in. The language of the village's pattern or regulations don't deal with anything over 500,000. So you're taking a square peg and trying to put it in a round hole. And it makes sense to me that given the explicit authority from 484 that says that even in the intent section, that they intend for the municipalities to follow all of the statutes, which I agree with, to create a new definition for the differentiation between a data center and a hyperscale. And then once you have a new construction standard, I hope everybody's following me on this, but once you have that new construction standard and you do not have a requirement, a building code for it, you have to create it. So shouldn't we, if it's that big and that bad that there's legislation that we have to create it, shouldn't we be allowed to say, okay, then I don't want to approve anything because I don't want a square peg in a round hole and have them doing one thing and somebody else doing another? I know
And that
that's a long way to get there, but how I can't see how Wade can argue this.
It's really not a long way to get there. It's procedural. It's what the village attorney is there for. It's what your village manager and what your village staff and your councils are there for. It's part of the process. So understanding that that 484 is there, if that administrative pause was put in place, it also allows the village to firm up language and requirements. We know that in the previous PUDs, there's a lot of non legal language, and I've brought this up many times. Best efforts do not constitute legally binding language. And we know that certain village staff did interviews with the news and the press that said that, for example, FPL had indicated, you know, that they were not going to put a data center on the site in future. Indications are not guarantees. There's nothing legally binding about an indication. That is neglectful when it comes to protecting the village. We also know that in those PUDs, there is nothing there for land reclamation. So we all know tech moves real fast. And those areas, data centers, regardless of what type they are going to evolve real quick. We see that in our everyday life with the invention of Chat GPT and Sora, things we didn't have just a year and a half ago. We're seeing all this different progress in tech. Well, if a site becomes redundant, okay, and the area is outgrown and no further development is allowed on the area, and they decide to move to a more suitable location, what happens to the industrial waste and land that is damaged that is there?
Yeah, I've
Because
asked
there's no,
about that too. There's no
yeah,
abandonment clause, and I've provided abandonment clauses. I've done gap analysis for every one of the commissioners. I did a 20-page report initially on the health and environmental detriments that no one was talking about for the non-existing data centers that are not here in Indiantown. And it drives me absolutely crazy to get a look down the end of the nose and being told that I'm a naysayer or a troublemaker when I know the science behind it and I know the resistance that's being met. And it's like one of those. Have you ever seen the movie Obey?
oh, yes.
Okay, it's like that movie for me. It's like I found with the village, I have found that pair of sunglasses that I can put on now, and I can see what all of a sudden everybody else can't see, and it's scary. It really is. It's scary.
And for me, it's deeply concerning and worrying that these safeguards aren't in those PUDs, that
Exactly.
these conversations aren't, being tightened down and the legal wording is not being made solid. Because that, if you think about that land reclamation, think about the um, contamination and waste, whether that's surface or ground, okay, and environmental on abandonment. Who's going to foot that bill? The village. Who's going to foot it? Taxpayers, ratepayers.
Yeah. Well,
And
the last super site here, federal taxpayers put a lot of money into, and that's where they're talking Project Growler now that they want to put a 600,000. It was 1.2, now it's 600,000 that they want to put a data center on just over there by Silver Fox.
and I've asked a lot of questions about that, and still have not received again village answers for that. But
Do you
one
think there's
shall.
NDAs floating around in there?
Now, if there are under 484, that would be a huge problem. So part of the what I call, what's known as, not even what I call, what's known widely as active citizenship is being involved in asking those questions and
Hmm.
asking, hey, where are you? Where are the documents? Anything related to that? Where are we now? That's what I sent, via email asking LaRonda for. was to find out any and all documentation, including reviews and stuff like that, or changes that are being considered in regards to that site. Because anyone in the village is on the back foot. It's a game of catch up, and sometimes it's catch up and it's already a foregone conclusion, and it's too late.
Yeah,
Recommendations have already been made to the council, but there's been no input. So that's why my second document that I brought in with that um, request to consider that administrative pause under 484, and why it could be done by 180, is to ask for a residents advisory council, and not one that's cursory,
I
one
like
that
that.
is open, and one that has representation. I even wrote an ordinance for it, left the ordinance number blank, but gave them the legal framework by which that could be done, because there is a public relations problem in the village from,
That's an understatement, and you're being very nice.
but here's
That's
the thing. That's basic governance, risk, and compliance, which is my professional field. And there seems to be a lack of training that's going on governance, risk, and compliance, and on managing that PR and public engagement. I cannot understand why, a governmental organization isn't on their P's and Q's with that, because it's easy. Because when there is suspicion, rumors start,
yeah,
distrust starts,
yeah,
and the questions come. And all of that drama, all of those issues could easily be dispelled and handled before they even, because those rumors are systematic and representative of a larger problem that comes before
yeah.
that lack
It's
of
systemic.
engagement.
I agree with you. It's systemic. And when you start seeing them move PZAB meetings to special meetings, cancel regular meetings, have 3 meetings back to back to get a PUD pushed through, and call it, well, we have precedents. We did it a couple times before. I mean, and you're going to tell me there's no reasoning for it? Those kinds of things are what precipitate the aha moment with people. And my fear, Melissa, is in Indian Town that there are enough people that have gone from aha to flipping the flying finger of fickle fate and just saying, we'll see what happens. I have no voice. I have no control. It's like what's happening at a national level. People are starting to feel completely shut out here in Indian Town, and especially the people that live in the perimeter sections. We used to be a much larger village than what they are. We weren't even a village, we were a community. But you know where I'm going with that. I mean, it's just,
Yes,
if you don't have a group of people that think and know and act and behave like they are the servant arm of the people, instead of being the authoritarian and you call it what you want, but I don't know. It's just, I don't like politically what I'm seeing up there. And I agree with you. There's a lot of different things within a culture, a city, and a government that those thousands of cuts of just, does it really matter at this point? Or, well, we can do a favor here or do a favor there. That kind of stuff becomes systemic in the system, especially when there's a lot of outside influence that can be applied monetarily and politically.
absolutely. And that's the core, because a lot of people that, I've spoken to, I've, gone through the village, spoken to people of multiple different backgrounds. People have been here since day dot, born and raised here, remember the orange groves and orchards, and earning their living off that, versus, business owners, from small businesses locally to people who are newly residents, people who've been long-term residents and landowners here. And a lot of people express that they don't want to speak up. They have a fear of doing so, for retribution or for being looked at as causing trouble or stirring the pot. The thing people need to understand is here in the United States, active citizenship is strongly encouraged by government institutions and our society organizations. And
Yeah.
even if you want to go back as to who, if you want to look at politicians,
Ben
Barack
Franklin.
Obama, even Joe Biden, John McCain, Bernie Sanders,
Uh,
Cortez, they all encourage that active citizenship. And part of that is speaking up. If we all go about thinking our voice does not matter, or our vote does not matter, or no one's listening to us, and sometimes they aren't, if we don't continue and carry on and use that, we lose that.
I
And
agree with
someone
you.
else will take it up for us.
100%. And when Ben Franklin came out of Liberty Hall and the woman asked him, "Sir, what kind of a government did you give us?" He says, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And to keep it, you need an active citizenry, just like you're talking about. We are what is supposed to be taking place, and we have been regulated and told to stand in a corner for so long that people are actually bent over. The tabletop has been thrown on top of them, and the work and the munificence of those above them are what they're feasting on. And when the people understand that they can stand up and actually say no, I think we might be able to see some changes, but that's just me. Sorry, I've had too much coffee this morning, but
No, no, you're right. And the thing about active citizenship is if groups, bodies, I'm just going to leave it that way, are telling active citizens that they're suspicious of them, or they're doubtful of their participation, or they diminish that participation by saying, hey, they don't know what they're talking about, the ill informed. Thank you for your opinion, but it never, amounts to consideration because it's instant. Or it's a foregone conclusion because of a recommendation. That disengages people because it's not about suspicion. It's about participation. Now, is that participation actually acknowledged as something tangible, or is it participation to say thanks for that? That's huge. And that image, again, image of the village and that public relations is struggling to
yeah.
make the residents feel that they are valued when they practice their active citizenship. And again, there's training that needs to go on, in my humble opinion, with the village staff and the village council on that governance, risk, and compliance and that high performing boards area because they act, those counselors, as boards in that hierarchy, although they're governmental. It still applies, although slightly different. And there's training for that too, because it can be done successfully. And there are councils that absolutely get this right. And there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong with doing that.
I'm with you on that, and I understand the hard or the philosophical line, the stay in the boundary line. We color in the coloring book within the lines, but it's like they're not playing within the lines anymore, and they want you to color in the lines, but they get to run around outside of the lines. And I go back to human nature and say, look, I am who I am because of a collection of beliefs, thoughts, ideas, actions, and consequences and reactions that have come from my actions. Okay. Over 61 years, I have developed a resume. I have developed whatever it is that I have or don't have, a reputation, whatever, my character. But when a government as a whole begins to do that, and the perception from the outside is one, they're not in control, two, it could be corrupt, and three, they're not doing things in the developmental interest of the community, that tells me there's something more systemic that's going on because a person in a decision making process should be exhibiting those beliefs, standards, ideas, things that they'll say they agree with you and I on, but they don't act on them. Why is that? What is the impetus that's keeping them from acting upon their beliefs? That's my
And
question
you
to them.
and you have to ask yourself, when there is a village staff recommendation, what weight does that hold when it comes to the council, and have the council?
100%, 110%. You and I have both gone to them with things that say legally to the contrary or show a different standard level that they could adopt. Get outside of the development areas. We've talked to them about other stuff, and they will give you 1,000 reasons why not. We're not right, but staff is. Well, why is that? Because we pay staff. They're the expert. We pay them.
Here's the thing. The taxpayer pays the staff.
Well, yeah, they do. And let me back up one more step on that. And I'm not going to bring a name into this, but there is a person at the top of that village hierarchy that has said to me, "You seem to be very frustrated with things." And I said, "Very frustrated." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "You and I both know when there's a direction going left or right, only one direction is shown. The other one's never mentioned." They said, "I know, it's very frustrating." I said, "You know, it's very frustrating." They said, "Well, I have to take the council's or the attorney's direction. I have to do what the attorney tells me." So who's making the decisions within that place? And if the attorney's the one making the decisions, why do they even have a council? Why are these people voting? What are they voting for? To say the attorney was right?
Well, the boards and the village staff all have a say in that recommendation with the oversight of the village attorney, who has that distinct professional knowledge and license for the law. Now, is every attorney, infallible? No. Does that mean, he is? I'm not saying one way or the other, because I know plenty of litigators and attorneys and solicitors, and King's Counsel that, we all make mistakes and we all get things wrong. However, he's his role is to work in the best interests of the village. And that part does not just include the council or the budget, but also the wants and needs and provisions, basic provisions for the people who reside within the village. Now, accessibility is an issue there because, again, taxpayers fund that role. So there should be that conversation. Now, I will say, I don't have a bad, view of the village attorney. He was very open and honest with some questions I had the last time I spoke and addressed him directly. Um, and I have a respect for, people's profession and position, including the council. But that does not mean I won't call out
Thank you.
something or bring to attention something that is inaccurate or that can be done and want to know why. Because we have the right to question. That's what active citizenship is. It's not about being, nasty to someone and diminishing them or reducing their reputation. It's about challenge. We have a system of checks and balances in this nation for a reason. Our forefathers put that in there.
Here, here.
But when we exercise it, there's an issue I see in Indiantown. You're being difficult.
Yeah,
You
all of a
know,
sudden we're getting kicked out of meetings, and there's we're being told we're naysayers, and it's misinformation and disinformation. I just it's beyond the pale at this point, and I don't know, man. I'm hoping that this election will prove to bring some people that are a little bit more sensibly minded to the table, because I got to tell you, I think that there's some influence behind the scenes right now that is bigger than I think anybody comprehends. I'll leave it at that.
I think there's some large issues. And I have done a lot of digging, and I know many others have, into who's on what boards, who influences what their stake are in certain things or interest, and not that they're taking, a bribe or taking improper, funds as a kickback or anything of that nature that might be construed as illegal. I'm not supposing that.
But
What I am
influence
saying,
influence itself is enough that you don't need money when you can make somebody feel like a hero.
Yes, and in small villages, that is the nature
Yep.
of things in general, that it's, we all know each other and who's local and, who's been around a while, even if they're not local. And they're all involved with many of the same endeavors outside the business of the
Ah,
village, but it still feeds into
okay.
influence.
Yeah. However, you have people that may be on a chamber board and be on the council. Okay, I get that. Chambers of commerce are not a closed corporation, a closed organization. When you get dark boardroom groups like the Economic Council who say that their job is to provide the economic future of Indiantown, and then they start producing people that have overlays in contractor positions, in PZA B board positions on both of those that are taking paid trips with people that are in the Economic Council of Indiantown, that the members themselves are sitting on the CCD with Josh Cullum. I mean, there's a lot of ties here that are they're more than just community. I'm on the Boy Scouts board, the church, and this board as well. They're not those kinds of boards. These are influence boards.
And I agree. It may not be illegal,
It sure is
but
ugly. It don't look
but
good.
it's unethical. But
Thank you.
here's the thing. If you expect everyone to live up to your ethics and morals, we have to be prepared to be sorely disappointed, because there's
Amen.
so many different factors that go into that. Just because we find it or others find it unethical or immoral doesn't mean that they will. But it does create a scene. And that scene is one of an old boys club, so to speak. And I don't mean just boys, it's just a saying, but of one of, you pat my back and I'll pat yours.
Oh, you mean like being the exclusive broker of the village for all real estate transactions? That
Look,
kind that kind of
ugh.
back scratching, or asking for the principal rights to be the primary and preferred supplier of youth sports. I mean, these kinds of things are really starting to become more than apparent. It's an economic capture in my opinion. But I have good news to that. I got to tell you a story. One of the things here on this, I guess what I'm going to call it a podcast, because this is episode three, four, episode four now. I use the free version of Zoom, and it runs out in 40 minutes, and I got a notice that we're running out of time. So I want to tell you about a group that I think may be able to help some of these situations, and it formed out of the same frustrations that you and I are talking about. Um, it is a group by the name of Greater Indiantown Community Alliance. And according to what I have been able to find out so far, they are there to promote Indiantown. They are there to protect the rural heritage and lifestyle and our way of life, and they are there to participate. So they're looking at giving a gateway and training opportunities for people to learn how to participate in the local government. And I think that they're going to be a wonderful addition and maybe a counterweight to people like the Economic Council of Indiantown. So go
And
America.
if anybody's looking at that, it's not about, they don't have any political affiliation. And if you agree or disagree with them, they're not going to hold that against you. It's about disseminating information
Yeah.
so that you can participate in active citizenship. So don't be afraid. It's not like you're going against
It's
somebody.
not teams. That's what we've been telling
No.
everybody. This is the biggest opportunity that we have in our lives. I have been so frustrated, and everybody has since COVID, because we've lost this unity as an American sort of family, and we have to start locally. And when we start locally, not by choosing teams, but by looking at the things that affect us where we live, in the place where we live, and finding common ground that we can deal with things together, that's when we begin to nurture and heal. And the rest of the country can look at us then as an example and begin their own process. But we've got to start start it right here at home, Melissa. I'm a firm
It does.
believer in that.
I agree. It has to start somewhere. And if we don't make that start, then we lay down.
Amen. Amen. All right.
I
I'm running
just
out of
want to,
time. It's
I'm
telling
just going to
me
add, all
it's
right,
going to.
I'm just going to add real quick. Thank you to, I have to say thank you to Bernstein, because she has absolutely stepped up and asked some very relevant questions, things she may not agree with. I give credit where credit is due.
All righty. Well, listen, you know anybody else or you want to come back, you get some updates, let me know. I appreciate you coming on and actually giving me the thought to say that I'm worth talking to. So I appreciate you being there. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate you. Take care.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.